Hello, Culture Matters podcast. I'm so excited for today's episode. Before I introduce you to our guest, here is a quote just for this episode. Get off self and on purpose. Your relationships are everything. And when you reinvest in them, Mike, when you reinvest with them, your business grows. Oh my God, I messed the quote up. Get off self and on purpose. Your relationships are everything. And when you reinvest in them, your business grows. Mike Bucky. Our guest today from episode 199, season 17, all about culture, all about team building, leadership, building relationships. A great friend of the Culture Matters podcast, tongue twisters today. The one and only, I'll call her Cutco Lindsay, that will cut through the BS and into the culture building, not only the top echelon in the entire organization, one of the most successful, not just sales, but relationship manager and consultant, advisor to her clients over the last decade and a half. Someone that's actually winning in a market that's changed in many ways, that doesn't just serve one vertical like banking and real estate or two, but now many. I'm excited to have you back on the show. And I challenged you, if you're listening to this, to go listen to episode 199, season 17. Very different episode. Go into the backstory. Thanks for coming back on the Culture Matters podcast. I'm excited. And thanks for the Cutco, by the way. Still using it.
You're welcome, man. It's awesome.
Thanks for coming back.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
First, it's not been an easy time for a lot of people, both on the show that have been willing to admit it,
hmm
and for those that haven't, and for our listeners in the general economy. The last year and a half, it's been different than the past. What are some things like activity wise that you've done to succeed and get momentum in this time versus retracting, in a negative way?
Yeah, yeah. I love, by the way, that you focus on this for your listeners. I think this is really important. Uh, I was brought up in the business, the Cutco business, like my earliest training. I was 17 when I started selling. And from early on, like a big message that we got was don't let these external factors um, affect you and your performance and what you want to achieve. And I think many times when we all hear that, that can feel negative in several ways. That can feel like pressure. That can feel like unrealistic, unattainable. But it's been one of the most helpful lessons and helpful things that's ever been modeled for me is that like down times are opportunity times. And everybody that knows what they're doing says that, right? Warren Buffett is like, when the market's down is when you invest. Like it's a basic, and yet we forget it. So I think I shared on my the first time they interviewed me that I started focusing, making realtors the focal point of my business literally in 2008, 2009. We all know what was happening then. Everyone was like, what are you doing? Why are you trying to sell anything to real estate
Wow.
agents? And my answer was, well, the people who are doing well now are going to be doing great in a couple years. And I want them on my customer list now so that I can grow with them. Um, and I think that sometimes the messaging we receive is also exaggerated. You know, even in '08 and '09, it wasn't that every realtor was hanging up their license and retiring. Like somebody, so I went out and that's when I started building, and that has colored my view on this kind of stuff forever. I just literally ignore what's going on. I mean, I read stuff and I am like aware that people are saying it, but focusing on that will only like drag you down and give yourself reasons to, so I just ignore it. And we focused on, I know my metrics, and typically when I started the business, I didn't. I was very bad at that originally, but now I know a certain amount of a certain type of meetings during the week will get me to where I need to meet expenses, and the next number of a certain type of meetings will
Huh.
get me profitable, and the next number will be doing great. And so I'm always trying to hit that great number, and like at a minimum standard, hit that minimum number. And it's just a numbers game. It doesn't matter what the market is doing. If you do your activity, the results will come, and you just need to adjust your activity to, if my average order changes, then I adjust how many meetings I'm doing, sure. But what I found over the past couple years was my average order is growing every year. It's because my skills are getting better, and what I'm able to offer customers, we're increasing. We're just like finding ways to offer greater value every year.
Mm.
So I'm not having those big dips that other people are seeing. So I guess that's my message is keep your eyes on your numbers and your metrics. Adjust if you need to, but everything else is just noise. And if that feels unrealistic, just try it. Like, what is it serving you to focus on the fact that the market is down or this or that?
You said there's three numbers. One is expenses, then profit, then great.
Yeah, somebody taught me that a long time ago. I was first taught that just in regard to my goals, like
Yeah.
what was the minimum I wanted to do, what was like my real goal, so to speak. So like my minimum standard, I'd be embarrassed and upset if I didn't hit it, my actual goal, and then my like if everything goes right, I'm going for this fantastic, stupendous goal. So it was like high, medium, and low. And then as my business got more sophisticated, it was what do you need to just pay bills and profit, and what do you need to exceed, and really
That's
like.
a really helpful tool that because I think I could even use that myself. Um, is there a certain how much greater is the great number, like percentage wise than the profit number? Is it double, triple, quadruple, or is it something less?
Yeah,
Um,
that's a great question.
right?
I think that needs to vary based on your business. Like you need to try it, and then those numbers will come to you. So it started. Let me see. If I was to think about what that would be right now, yes, my great, stupendous, happy number is about double my actual goal, and my minimum is about half of the yeah. So for me right now, it
Yeah.
just doubles. That might have been different 5 years ago, and it'll probably be different 5 years from now because you scale and you can just exponentially increase,
Do you have
from
a process or something, even if it's intuitive, of deciding what you're not going to focus on versus what you do
what I'm not going to focus on.
as far as activities?
Mm, yeah. Um, I think it's helpful just to, oh, well, yeah, yeah, actually, I started to say an answer and then I thought of a much better one. So you can track your key result areas, right? And track what happens based on certain things and then compare them to other things and say, well, I see what I need to focus on. But somebody once told me to keep a bullshit list.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I need
So
that.
great. I literally used the logo, or not logo, the emoji, and I would
Yeah.
put it into my calendar every time I had to do bullshit, right? Stuff that was not profitable, distracting, negative, or just plain stupid. And then I would look at that list and be like, how can I eliminate this? Eliminate was the main goal. How can I eliminate this? Just make sure this never happens. Just put systems in place so that I never have to fix this problem, right? Or delegate it. Like those two things. Get it gone. And it really, if you're feeling overwhelmed, it really focused me on what needed to change.
Hmm.
By the way, just one thing I want to say before I forget about the like high, medium, and low goals. One reason I think that's super cool is it takes your goal out of the range of just success or failure. And so many of us have a very visceral reaction to failure. And as soon as you start to fail, there's all this temptation to just give, oh, I'm not going to hit it anyway, right? Or you're just punishing yourself trying to get numbers that you know you're not going to get and you're miserable. If you have a high, medium, and low, and you share those with whoever your mentor is, then it also makes it easier for your mentor to hold you accountable because they can say, okay, I think it might be time that we change tracks. And that could be both up or down, right? You
Mm.
can saying, hey, I'm going to hit that. I'm on track to hit that middle goal. And you yourself can coach yourself, or your mentor can say, okay, I think it actually might be time to think about the high goal. And you're like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready for that. No, let's go for it. You still have time to hit that this week, right? Or versus like, oh, I was so attached to this high goal, I'm nowhere close. Well, let's hit your medium, or at a minimum your minimum goal. You still did not fail if you hit your minimum goal. We said that was your minimum. You're good.
Are the, mentors or accountability partners uh, an important component of the Cutco culture?
Oh yeah, 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 100%.
Why?
um, I think that there are many things in life, like Tony Robbins always says, like, find the master, follow the model. And he's literally like, find the person who's the best at whatever you want to do, and then just like get close to them and mimic exactly what they are doing. Because if what they are doing works and you mimic it, like, why wouldn't it work? If it doesn't work,
Yeah.
you're not doing exactly what they're doing, right? um my husband, by the way, has uh he's like midway through a PhD in teaching, and he disagrees with that.
Wow.
I feel like that has worked for me, at least to an extent. Like, you copy someone who's crushing it, and eventually you'll find your own things that you're going to change within their business. But so for sales in particular, which is so relationally based, and somebody can give you a script. I think everybody has seen that exercise where they take like the sentence and they just emphasize a different word each time in the sentence, and it changes. I can't repeat it, but I think people have heard that exercise. I can try and figure it out if you're curious. But it's like, if all you do is emphasize a different word in the sentence, it completely changes the nuanced meaning of the sentence. And
Interesting.
so for a script, I think you need to hear somebody do it. And when you ask somebody, how do I deal with challenges, it's a whole big thing for them to say, oh, I just ignore it. And it's another thing to like see me ignore it when a customer's being terrible, or every single appointment of my day cancels, or right. It's another thing
Yeah.
to see someone handle it. So we do a lot with, we're huge with what we call field training, which is just go spend the day with somebody. That's old school, right? Go along with somebody on their appointments. Totally, there's a reason they did that for, everybody did that for like years
Oh,
and years.
like actually spending so responsibility is modeled. This is something I've come to believe. Responsibility is modeled. It's experienced through the senses, the ability
Mhm.
to respond. But accountability is given in speech or taken in action.
Mm,
Like,
that's fascinating. Yeah.
yeah, like I'm saying what I think, my perception. I'm holding another to account.
Yeah.
Responsibility, the ability to respond. To your point, it's modeled in behavior. It's I'm watching the person do it. I'm gonna pick up. I'm gonna be influenced by seeing them. It's like the rules for thee and not for me.
Yeah.
Like we don't want to work with that person
No.
because they're a hypocrite.
Mhm.
And then so yeah, responsibility is modeled in behavior. Accountability is given in speech and taken with action. Like
And there's been so many
depending on
times when I'm just like, oh, I thought I was saying exactly what you were saying. I'm not getting the same result. Then I saw you do it and I realized there was a whole different vibe, like vibe, energy, whatever you want to say, right? I saw you do it. I heard you do it. I was like there in person, and I realized you were just making a different feeling in the room than I was, potentially even saying exactly the same words.
what would you say are some of the elements that have made the culture so strong at Cutco over the years?
Oh man, I could talk forever about this.
Because it's got to be part of the reason because I want to get into the spirit of gifting
Yeah.
and the value of the actual product. has to have some relationship with the culture of the actual organization. That's because you're infusing meaning behind. It's more than a knife. It's
Yeah.
a family gathering. It's a camaraderie with a customer. It's so yeah, like the culture of this organization. There's got to be so many things to learn.
Yeah, they've definitely always been so that the field training thing is a good place to point at to say like this is how giving they are. I mean, you can chase down a lot of our top people and say, "Can I spend the day with you and like shadow you around and follow you working with your customers?" And I think a lot of people all over the place would say no, either out of like a scarcity mindset that I don't want you to see what I'm doing because then you'll be able to copy it, or like, no, I don't want to risk you messing up the connection that I create one on one with the client. I got somebody standing there looking over our shoulder. It could get weird. Um, like there's a lot of fear-based reasons to say no. And like the most people in our company, you can like literally go ask to follow them for a day and they will totally let you and like host you in their house if they can or whatever. Like,
Wow,
I mean,
really?
of course, the more that we scale, the more those people have intense schedules. And so you might not be able to do it for a while, but you can come see me in X amount of weeks or whatever. But that's been always a big thing. The quote that you read off Self on Purpose. I can't tell you how many times one of my first that is my mentor, Mike Kabuki, was one of my first mentors, and he would say that to me a lot when I was griping about something. Sometimes I hated to hear it, but it was always the right advice. Always. It didn't matter
Wow.
how like justified I was. It was always the better advice. Off Self on Purpose. Like, what are your people doing? Whether your people are customers or employees or staff or whatever. Like, what do your people need from you right now? It's better to focus on that than it is whatever you're dealing with.
What do people need now from your observation? Because you're in and around all these small businesses.
Mhm.
What's the feeling? What's the vibe right now?
I always, almost every situation that is going on externally, I almost always see a difference between, I don't want to say the winners and losers. I don't like those words, but the winners and the people that are struggling. Like the winners are like, it's business as usual. We're adjusting XYZ, but like their basic attitude is like, yeah, but it's not all that different. And the ones that are struggling are like, it's so different. This is such a big deal. It's what you focus on expands. That's really that's really it.
Do
So
you
I
see a commonality for those that are not maybe operating at their best? Are they more or less or neutral wrapped up into like the micro? I'm sorry, the macro. For example, we're recording this week. There's a pretty big, I think it's in 2 days. There's a pretty big, uh, I mean, there's an election happening. This is
I'm
coming
like,
out
you're
of,
bringing
yeah, I
the
was
whole
trying to like, I don't know if I,
it.
yeah, there's a big event. Yeah, how do I say? Not to go, that would undermine, I think, the value of this podcast to talk about the details. But there's a big responsibility that.
Yeah,
So, are people overly focused on that? Under focused? Um,
yeah. I
I'm
think like
curious about that ideologically, if that's a distraction for people.
yes. And like we're speaking on two levels here, right? There's like truth with a capital T. Is the election really affecting the market? And then there's like, what way of thinking about this is going to is it's a tool. What way of thinking about this is going to allow you to proceed and flourish as much as possible. And at that point, I think the truth with a capital T does not matter as much. Like, you need to act like the election is not influencing real estate and just go forward. If you focus on how the election might be influencing real estate, what are you going to do about it? Can you change the election's happening? You cannot. Can you change how the election goes? Only in a very marginal way, right? So focusing on what you can affect. And I'm not saying that things at a macro level aren't important. I think you should take time out of your schedule to focus on that, but you have to compartmentalize, or you're like thinking about macro things when you have to do micro and get neither of them done.
Was there a percentage of all of customers that said we're going to wait until after to make decisions to
I didn't
reinvest in our business at all?
I didn't get too much of that this year.
That's
Depending
good.
on, yeah. Other people might see that more depending on the scale of the type of decisions they're asking for. I think that it doesn't matter what's going on. You're going to want to invest in your clients and your employees and your referral partners. So, um, and as much as like Cutco's not cheap, we're also not asking for the level of, yeah. I just don't think that needed to. Those two things didn't cross over too much now.
Hmm. What about the idea? So when it comes to putting a budget together for investing in our customers,
Hmm.
what's a good way to start? A good way to start thinking about that. I know all the listeners are in different sized businesses,
Yeah, yeah.
but how would you recommend? Because you've interacted with so many
Hmm.
customers that are giving to their customers over the years. How would you recommend approaching that decision to start thinking about it? Because at the end, it's an investment
Yeah,
of time, money, energy to invest into customers,
yeah,
just like it's an investment to invest into marketing.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
an, and I would think it's another, or argue at least, it's another component of marketing. Would be why don't you keep the customers you have? Or
yeah.
it costs more to get a new customer than it does to retain a customer.
It costs so much more. So to be honest, I am still working on what percentage I would tell. I do want to find a number that I think would work for every industry, and to say, you should invest X amount back. I would not say I've found a number yet. I'm probably able to tell you that the next time you interview me. Like exactly what I think would work as a broad number.
Yeah, like in the Bible, they said, "Do you have 10%?" And I'm giving a half of a fifth of a hundredth.
Yeah, and
Like they
you're
have it pretty nailed down. So, or I'm giving 9%. Oh, but it's 10. What are you doing? And in different, so
yeah, and it's hovering around that, right? It's just like, is it of your net? Is it of your gross? Is it of each, like, is it a different percentage based on the value of the company? What I would say is,
it's interesting.
I bring up this book all the time, John Rowland,
Yeah.
buddy of mine in the company. Now, I don't know if you know this, but he passed away this year suddenly. Did you know that?
Yeah. Man. Yeah.
Super, like rocked our community. It was super unexpected, and like we're shaken. It was tragic. But he wrote in his book, suggest he says take 15% of your end or net profit and reinvest it into gifts, loving on the customers and the people on your team. So he says 15% of the net.
So the rule is 15%
Hmm. Yeah.
of the net.
And to be honest, I don't know
Interesting.
why I'm trying to reinvent the rule and like see
Ah,
if I think there's a different number. Like Rulon was a
ah.
genius on this. So it's really just proving to myself, like seeing it, that that's what makes sense for every industry. And
It's interesting you bring that up on the net because the obviously we can i- if we're in control of the bit we can do all sorts of things to show that we made less than we did. So
right.
oh yeah, 15% of the net. So it's like 7 cents.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, yeah, I bought this new G-Wagon because it's heavy so that I could give less to my customers.
Yeah.
It makes me think like maybe did he think through that? I don't know, because that could be a good tip because it 15% of net, you better show some profit. If you're
Right,
gonna,
right.
yeah, oh, we made $100 this year. We're putting $15 into our customers.
Right, right. And I think
So
that goes back to what you were saying though, like if you remember that your past customers who already know and trust you are by far your most valuable and resilient part of your business, then you won't be tempted. Another thing that he always says is instead of asking yourself what's the least we could do, ask what's the most we could do, which puts
wow.
people in uncomfortable places. Like that takes me to uncomfortable places. Really, if I really ask myself what's the most I could do a lot, right? Um, at least asking that, at least exploring that just puts you in a whole different mindset. And that, of course, comes across to the customers because most people are asking themselves, what's the least I can do? And it comes across in whatever gift they or even service they might provide.
What do you think needs to be done so we're not just entitling our customers, but we're creating that space for responsibility?
That's
It's
such
like
a
I'm
great,
not buying the relationship. I'm just thinking out loud. Like that,
right?
I don't want to buy the relationship. I want to almost figure out how I can create more value.
Through the gift. I love the questions that you ask. You're such a good question asker.
Thanks.
So that circles me back to what we were talking about before we turned the mics on. We were just chit chatting. Is like I've been focusing a lot this year on messaging. What are you saying, writing, and in all ways communicating with the gift? And that can be that's very easy for some people that they're just like their vulnerability and their truth just rises to the top and just spills over and it's easy for them to put the words on the paper or get it out over the phone or face to face or whatever, and other people it's a lot harder to get that out or even get to it in the first place. Like what is the thing that I even want to say? I don't know. But I think the important things that take it from transactional and buying the business and buying the relationship um to something much more on a much more rewarding plane is why well, you communicate why I am giving this. And it's
Hmm.
okay to say, I'm dying to work with you, if that's the truth. Or I really want to earn your business. Or I'm hoping that this can be a first step towards a beautiful partnership. Like it's okay to bring up business. It just has to come from a real way. I think of
Hmm.
I was working a show a couple weeks ago and I was struggling. Like I thought this show was going to be great and I was on the struggle bus. It
Wow.
was not going well. And this there was like a group of other there was another business that had a booth somewhere because I kept seeing their people walk around with like t-shirts on and they had the coolest logo. It was called, I'll even say, I'll bring them up. It was called Seven Trees. It was a woodworking expo. It was Seven Trees Woodworking. And it had a tree and the logo. It was super cool. I kept seeing their people. A couple of them came up to the booth. They were nice. I chit chatted with them. Finally, the owner just made her way up to the booth. And and we started chatting when I realized she was the owner. I said, I've got to tell you, I've been seeing your people and the t-shirts and the logos walking around all day, and I am dying to work with you. Like that logo is so cool. That would look so good. I just want to put that logo
Wow.
on it, right? And that was one of the better sales that I made that day because it took us from like a conversation where I was pitching and they were like it took us out of it broke the pattern. You mentioned that earlier. And it was
Wow.
just like real vulnerability. And it ended up that the logo was very special to her and her husband chose that name based on a Bible verse that was meaningful to them. And it was a whole thing. So the fact that I recognized that her logo was special. I mean, most people put something into their logo, but some people put
Sure.
more than others, right? So in the name of their business and whatever. So yeah, I think that being open about the fact that you really want to work with somebody is honestly a very okay, if not a wonderful place to start. And then the next person you might say something a little bit different. I've loved working with you in the past. What you said
You found that people actually will gift before ascertaining the customer.
if you're being really smart, yeah. So what I say is I teach strategic gifting, right? Not just gifting. Everybody can go out and buy somebody something, but strategic, being really smart with it. And what's the smartest thing you can do? give before you get the business, I'll tell you what, that'll get somebody's attention every time. And I've started practicing it myself, and it
Hmm.
is risky, right? What if I don't get an ROI? Um, John used to always change that to ROR, return on relationship,
Really?
rather than return on investment. Yep. Um, which makes you think about what did you put into the relationship, not just your money, you know?
Hmm.
So yeah, gifting first, especially if it's a client who everybody's after their business. I think on the last podcast I told you this story too from his book because it's just such a classic. It's so cool. He was trying to get somebody's attention that was the type of guy that everybody would take him out to. Everybody wanted his business, and when he was in town, they'd take him out to a game. You know, oh, I got box seats here, there, and every place, and and everybody was buying him drinks and whatever. And I might butcher this story a little bit because it's been a long time since I read it, but it's in the book and it's great. He found out like what brand of shirt the guy liked the most, and he was from I think Canada, so he liked this American brand that he couldn't get in Canada, and tried multiple times to get something to happen. I want to take you to a game, I want to whatever, and the guy just always kind of blew him off. Anyway, he arranged to fill the guy's hotel room with the entire like a whole store in just his size. He said he went to the
Wow.
store and he's like, I need size, whatever, of everything you have in the store, put it on my credit card. Him and his assistants walked out with like everything, loaded the car, and then they just set up, they had to talk to the hotel room, of course, the hotel and whatever, and get access to his room and whatnot before he got there. And then when he came in, it was go ahead, go shopping, whatever you like in here, keep, and I'm just going to take the rest back. Blew the guy's mind, and he came back and said, I'll do whatever business with you want. You have my attention.
Wow.
Right? How cool is that?
Hey, well, how did he pass? Like, what happened? Do we know? Like, it was
Oh, how
just
did
his
he die?
time.
um I don't know what the actual he collapsed when they were on a hike. And so the most I've been able to the most specifics I've been able to get is, maybe some kind of heart condition or something. But um he had a memorial that I can send you the link to that people are like still talking about. It was super impactful.
Yeah. What can we learn from leadership from John's life?
John was a giver. Like he walked his talk. The guy would answer my text at like stupid. I can't believe he would answer my text at all. Like with the amount of busyness that he had and it was just unbelievable that he would even the amount of time that he would give to so many people of all different levels of influence, people that could not give anything to him. And he was always creating like super special experiences for people. And even just by doing what he did, he was giving a lot to us because I can't tell you how many customers me and other Cutco people have gotten that are like, oh, I read John Woolen's book, Cutco. This is what he was talking about in the book a lot, right? Yeah. And then like I get the business
Wow.
or and he's fine with that. He says that's why we wrote you this book. This is the door opener to like so many things. And I'll be out here, selling. He was out there selling to people that just I am never going to be able to get to. And most of us are never even going to dream of like getting to the people at the level that he was getting at, but then that just raises the tide for all of our boats. And I'm now closing bigger deals and with people that I didn't think I'd a couple of years ago I wouldn't have thought I'd ever have access to. It's because he paved the way and like go with the example.
And what year did that book come out?
Good question. Let's see if it's in the front. 2016.
Wow. Because yes, and it's called Giftology, correct?
Yeah, the art and science of using gifts to cut through the noise, increase referrals and strengthen retention.
I really recommend that book. I'm going to re-listen to it for anyone that's listening to this podcast. I think obviously giving is a really important part of culture because I
Mhm.
don't think we can have an open society if we're unwilling to
Mhm.
give our time, give our knowledge, you know. eh, Right there's a you mentioned something earlier that sat with me. The fear somebody's gonna if somebody's shadowing me.
Oh, yeah, like, just out of
Fear.
fear, are you gonna mess up the vibe that I'm creating with the client because there's, like, a third person in the room that's just watching.
Yeah, I just realized I like have a scenario in mind. I'm like, oh wow, that just helped me in a blind spot. It's like that's not the right. That's a very controlling thought to think. Oh, yes, it could mess up for my agenda. That's like playing almost like God in a sense. I don't know what the
And it's
future is going to bring. I'm
right,
saying
and
to
it's
not
like
be open to not.
exactly, yeah, to be afraid or to say, like, "Well, that's gonna cause a bad outcome," so the answer is no.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that assumes I know what's going to happen, and I could never know what's going to happen because the
well,
future is
that
not guaranteed. It's improbable. Who knows what's going to happen?
well, yeah, well, that's true, and also, for me, the bell that rang was, like, they say when you're a leader, you have to, grow your umbrella so big that, like, other leaders can expand underneath you and not feel, like, trapped by you. You have to keep growing, right? You have to let them have their little empires. If your empire is not what you're providing is not big enough for people to have really big things underneath it, then they're gonna leave. So, I thought of that, like, if I think that the only way I can have success with a client is if I'm the only one in the room and I like have control of all the like the somebody else is present. Well, then I need to get better at a presentation, don't I? Like, don't I need to grow and make it so that I could
Huh.
have like an audience or an observer and it wouldn't that is at least an opportunity for me to grow in that way. And everybody that I've seen that focuses like that has that attitude does. Like the it doesn't matter like who's standing there and what they're doing. They could be like doing something totally distracting or weird or picking their nose or like being
I'm
totally
telling you,
awkward and you're just too cool, like it doesn't matter.
I just had a realization today. Like as soon as we stop recording, I need to send this email. I realized like I did something out of character or thought something out of character from a standpoint of scarcity. And now
Mhm.
I'm like, oh wow, how the heck did that happen? Well, I know it happened because I'm operating from a context of less competence, more insecurity, heightened anxiety, um, ignorance. So,
Snuck up on you.
100%. Like, oh wow, we had to talk about this today because I just today I was like thinking, oh, I don't know, and then I wasn't sure, and it's like, what a great reminder. Because even if you know sometimes, yeah, the more I know about something, I can be even less likely to act it out
Yeah.
because I think I know it. So I
Yeah.
think that's a blind spot even to today
Mhm.
from this, what you're saying, this the Cutco culture of being open to share information.
Yeah.
Um, wow, what a gift. So I would say, in closing, I'm on the fence. I'm listening. I have I'm a listener. I have 15% net profit.
Yeah. More than good.
That's more than $100.
Yeah.
And I'd like to do maybe the person A wants to show appreciation to their clients.
Mhm.
Let's speak to them for a second. And then person B, they want to maybe show appreciation to a potential client. Can you just speak to those two people?
Yeah. So the first one to clients and the second one to a potential client.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Great. So a couple things that we always say make a gift successful is number one to be unique. It can't be the same thing that they are could easily access just any old place. If you can get it on Amazon, if they can just buy it for themselves or they already have 100 of them. And a couple of years ago, like if there was a competitor, like a lot of times I would approach people and we would talk about Cutco and they would say like, oh, we're doing Yeti cups this year. I'm giving out Yeti cups. And for like a hot minute there, they were sort of competition. But Never really, because then, like, now, how many cups do you have? Like, people make TikToks about how funny that is, right? I open the cabinet and my wife has 700,
Yeah.
right? Like, people will say that, and 700, Stanleys and whatever. So, unique is big. It's gotta be something that they wouldn't have necessarily just gone out and get for themselves, or that they could at any point. And the other thing is, it needs to be top in class. If there's like 3 levels, good examples like a watch. If they have a Casio and you give them a Rolex, they're gonna throw away their Casio, and they're gonna wear your watch everywhere and talk about it and show everybody. And if they have a Rolex and you give them a Casio, the opposite is gonna happen, and it's gonna get
Oh,
you.
let's not keep talking. Let's next. Oh, no. I just have so much guilt.
About that topic in particular.
No, then it made me feel bad. Like if I'm even the recipient, I better be grateful they gave me that ugly sweater.
Right, right.
Then it's like I need to get grace. We need grace for these people
Yeah,
because
yeah,
they
because
may
they're
not, I'm trying to think, why did they give me that Casio? You know?
it's
So
probably
it's an
because 'cause they're just trying
interesting.
to figure out how to what you said earlier is a great question, but how do I not have that hurt me? Like, how do I not have it look like it was like that was an interesting question, because on the one way, it was very off self and on purpose. It was, how do I make that actually get the message across, and how do I not cheapen it? But it was also, how do I make sure it doesn't backfire, which is also really about you, right? So if you're the recipient, having a little grace for the fact that they were trying to figure it out, and they were trying to figure out how to, like, not be they were probably thinking that being over generous could hurt them, or they, like, would be a dumb choice in some way, or maybe they were just trying to scale to the level that they could. They probably had some other
I have
people.
so many issues around this, like innocent until proven guilty, right? We
Yeah,
better
yeah.
have a conversation about this shitty gift.
Mhm.
Like I need to at least talk about. I can't repress it for 40 years. We got to talk about it because innocent till proven guilty. You're innocent, but like we need to talk about this. The regifters and all those things. Like
Yeah.
I don't want to be that person,
And I
but
think that's what
but
people don't realize, is, like, it's blatantly obvious when you do it. We all know.
that's where self-awareness comes in. I mean, but then again, anyway, it's a deep these I love these giving conversations because it's very deep. It's
Yeah.
it's very individualistic how we give and what we give, and I think it can teach us a lot about ourselves of where we're at in whatever journey we're in.
Yeah.
And the other people in our lives too, like what we're giving and how we're giving and why we're giving and how much we're giving and you know being in like being a part of charities and things, I f- we're never giving, it feels like we're never giving enough.
Mm.
And there's this battle because if you get, you know, if I give, whatever I give means I can't take.
Yep.
And there's a lot of shit I want.
Yeah. That was a very self-aware statement too.
That
There's a lot that I want.
I feel like a bad person every time we give to charity. Just
Mhm,
terrible.
mhm.
Uh and it's anyway, I'm digressing. So basically the first thing was I wrote down be unique and think about quality.
Yeah, yeah. Think about quality, think about lasting. How long are they gonna be able to keep and use this? Because if it's something that's seasonal, or it gets shoved on a shelf and just collects dust, or it gets used once. I talk all the time about consumable gifts, and it doesn't mean that a bottle of wine is never the right gift. It can be, right? But there is a limitation to those things that are consumable. If they can eat it, they can drink it, they can spend it. It's once and done. It's thanks, man, and it's over, and that's it. Like, that's all you and they got out of the gift. So if you can find something that's a little bit more long lasting, now that does mean that you're probably gonna have to spend a little bit more, because what out there is $50 that actually lasts? I
Hmm.
very, very little. Very, very few things. So unique, long lasting, and top quality. Those are just a few like must haves. Um, One thing that I really like and that I'm doing better this year at teaching my clients how to use this. They're all getting a lot out of this. Is simply the fact that you can say to people like, "I look forward to building you a set through future transactions and referrals," or if you're giving it to employees, staff, I look forward to building you a set through our future years of working together. And it's just a cool way to insert in the conversation. I want this relationship to be long term. I plan on this. I intend this relationship to be long term. These are my intentions. And there's not too many other things that you can say, like, I'm going to collect them all for you. I can't get you all the water bottles in the world. You don't want me to get you all the Yetis in the world. I can't buy you, right? But you can like build them a set and people can go wild, like waiting for the next one because it
Mm.
has that element to it. So, like a client that I have a client that does barn restoration, and they do all these like historic barns in Lancaster County and beyond. And this is his fourth year now of buying a piece for each of his 70 employees every year. And this is the second or third time that I've walked in his place of business to have the conversation about what he's going to do this year. And his two employees that sit at the front desk go, "Oh, are you the Cutco girl? Are you the one that gets us our knives every year?" And I was like, "I am." And they're like, "Oh my gosh, what are we getting this year?" I'm like, "I can't spoil the surprise." The
Huh.
one lady goes, "I wish we had a video at the banquet last year when he displayed them up front and said, everybody, it's time, you can come pick them up." And she said
Wow.
all of the wives were like elbowing their husbands, like, "Go get it now." It's, which is the last thing that I'll say is like, if you can give a gift that involves the whole family or their circle, their inner circle, if the gift can somehow be something that their inner circle can also get use and benefit from, it's way more special than just gifting them. Many people that you're trying to get their business are going to be folks who could buy themselves anything they wanted anyway. But if you can make their spouse, their kids, their number one employee that they just like couldn't live without, if you can make those people feel special with the gift as well, that's like bonus.
Mm.
And so many times that's what it is. I have a lot of people that they're one person is taking it home, but the spouse also gets to use the knife. So that's
I
an
love
exciting.
that. And then ways, what I'd like to end on is ways to really screw up gifting to a potential relationship.
Yeah. Well, this is interesting. Like I was just like flipped through the first couple pages of John's book when you asked me what the copyright was. And one of the first things he says in here was like, how do you make this not transactional? And I'm having trouble finding the page now, but he basically said, just give it with no strings attached. And I think that's the number one thing, unconditional. So I know I said earlier it's okay to say I would love to work with you, but that's because it's just a
What if
statement
you're
of
telling
what
the
is
truth?
true. Yeah, and how you really feel. It's not a pressure to, or that like you're expecting something in return. It's giving this and then a true statement of like, if you can say why you'd love to work with them, I find that that's more meaningful too, is
Yeah,
because you're,
expectation and desire are different, I think.
yeah, yeah. And it's very flattering for someone to say, I would love to work with you, even if it's just because they would make a lot of money. Like that's still flattering. They're still recognizing that you would be like life changing for them to be your customer. I'm sorry, but like you can't take that poorly. You just can't. Like that's not that's
I can identify. I'm such a terrible salesperson. That's the only thing that's ever worked for me. And to be the only person left standing.
Yep, that's
You work
that's
with
my
enough
strategy too.
people, you realize, oh, they don't know as much as they appear to know. Let's get Jay eventually. Like,
Yeah,
because he's still
yeah,
standing there with his placard, culture matters. I love that. Yeah. Don't make it about the expectation or the what's like, we know the listener, we know when we're giving this when we're giving versus taking.
yeah, yeah.
So we know.
Do you mind if I share one more story that I don't have a result on this yet, but I can tell you soon how this is gonna work out. I met somebody recently that was the son of the owner, and I was not able to talk to the owner that night, but I had a great conversation with the son, and he was very cool. And similar thing, I wasn't like obsessed with their logo, but I had seen them advertising around, and I got a very good impression of their company for multiple ways. I could tell it was like a family business, and there were so I just said those things to the son of like, hey, what I've seen, you guys have been really impressive. You seem like a great, like a family business. You guys seem like somebody that I would honestly love to work with. You seem like you treat your employees well. I'd love to work with you guys. And he opened up and told me how important cooking and food is to their family, his Italian family. Um, and I was like, do you guys own any Cutco in your house? Or no, we don't. And I said, all right, hey, would you mind helping me out with something? I would like to send your dad a gift, no strings attached, but it's just hurting my heart right now that you guys don't own Cutco and you're cooking that much. Like this needs to be fixed. Oh, and he's laughing. And I was like, can you help me get this gift to your dad? Like, what's a good address, mailing address? And can you help me pick the color and whatever? And it was so fun to get the text from him a little while ago, and I'll see if I can. And like, you're doing the right thing when I haven't even like created a meeting with this business yet, but I was just so thrilled that they got it and that they were excited. My kid just came in in
Hey,
his Halloween costume. Oh, you can't really see.
now we're doing the culture. Hey, what's up, buddy?
So he's trying to show you he's got a Halloween costume on and it's like Dracula teeth. We're just wrapping up here. Do you mind taking a real quick?
You
Um,
wouldn't be culture without family.
that's right. So yeah, he just texted me like my dad says those are the best knives he's ever used. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's awesome. I'm thrilled." And I don't have the next chapter of the story to tell yet. We didn't set the appointment yet, but like, yeah, I honestly think I'm not going to do business with that guy. Like he's he's thrilled. He was so thrilled that he told his son. You know what I mean? And that's
That's culture.
yeah. I think that's a great example of like how it should be working and how it should
Yeah,
feel.
there's a lot to think about there. I would say that everything that's happened that's been amazing and almost inexplicable in our whole company's history is in the other side of take you're in a leap of faith to actually give and invest. You're investing in a relationship. I believe that that is a huge piece of culture because and ultimately too, I have to feel like I have something to offer that's worth because this is something I want your thought, and we can wrap up here. It's like the give and take, right? I'm not taking if the value that I'm bringing is greater than the exchange.
Correct.
So, do our listeners actually believe in what they're providing at the level that you are? That the
Mhm.
level that I do most of the time. That's my own insecurity, doubting myself, doubting my. It's like, but yeah, do we actually believe in what we're providing, and are we willing to risk it all, like invest into something that isn't guaranteed? And I think what a great example of the culture
Mhm.
of John. It's like we need another book, John's Rules. Imagine this, like all the top people that knew him wrote one of his rules. That's a
Yeah,
book like Ruin's Rules, and it's dedicated in his honor. What were the things that signified who he was as a
yeah,
leader that exemplify the Cutco culture? I'm sure you and your colleagues could easily put together Ruin's Rules. But in closing, how can people contact you if they want to start being less greedy, self-centered, deceiving, malevolent as it relates to their customer experience?
I love it. So phone for me is always best. 717 I'm only a text away, text or a call away. Um, And my email is, we mentioned this earlier, I have a LLC that like under the Cutco umbrella. So legacy branding gifts. So if you email it, Lindsay at legacybrandinggifts.com.
For all you listeners, I can tell you from experience, the knives are real. They work. They're unbelievable. Happy customers here wanting to share what's been great for our family and people we care about. So please follow up with Lindsay. Listen to episode 199, season 17. Please leave us a review in the Culture Matters podcast, and we will see you next time. Thanks so much.